If you were to walk into a high-security electronics laboratory today, you would see engineers wearing grounded wristbands to prevent static discharge from frying sensitive circuits. In the ancient world, the tabernacle was that laboratory, and the ground was salted. For centuries, we have been told that the covenant of salt mentioned in Numbers 18 is just a poetic metaphor for a friendship that doesn't spoil. That is a Sunday school simplification of a high-level physical reality. The ancients didn't just season their food with salt, they armored their reality with it. They understood something about the geometry of the salt crystal that modern physics is only now beginning to admit. Salt is a biological grounding wire. Today, we are diving into the chemistry of consecration. We are going to uncover why the ocean was considered a dead zone for parasitic entities and why the most powerful legal contract in the Bible is signed in sodium chloride. The geometry of the incorruptible. Look closely at a single grain of salt under a microscope. You won't see a random, jagged rock. You will see a perfect, repeating cube. This is the halite structure. In the ancient Near East, the cube was the symbol of the fixed point, the part of reality that cannot be moved, fermented, or corrupted. While everything else in the desert rotted, salt remained exactly the same. It was the only thing that could defeat time. In his work, Natural History, the Roman scholar Pliny the Elder noted that humanity cannot survive without salt. But it wasn't just about nutrition, it was about frequency stability. Think about the last time you felt scattered or mentally drained. In psychological terms, this is often a lack of grounding. The ancients believed that chaotic entities, what we might call demons or parasitic thought forms, cannot maintain their structure in the presence of a perfect cube. Salt forces chaos into order. This is why, in the book of Leviticus, God explicitly commands, "With all thine offerings thou shalt offer salt." It wasn't to give God flavor. It was to create a crystalline shield that prevented entropic forces from hitchhiking on the sacrifice. Does this sound like a primitive superstition to you, or does it sound like an early form of electromagnetic shielding? If reality is made of frequency, as modern quantum mechanics suggests, then salt is the physical anchor that keeps that frequency from drifting. The contract of the earth. In Numbers 18:19, the Creator establishes what is called a covenant of salt forever. In the ancient United States, or even in the modern West, we sign contracts with ink. In the Bible, they salted them. When two tribes made a pact, they would eat salt together from a single bowl. This was the analytical law of the desert. Because salt is indestructible by fire or time, the contract became indestructible. But there is a deeper, more candid truth here. To enter a salt covenant was to admit that your body and the earth were made of the same mineral, data. You are, quite literally, a walking saltwater battery. Your brain communicates via the sodium-potassium pump. Without salt, your thoughts literally cannot move. The covenant of salt was a reminder that your consciousness is bound to the physical laws of order. When you lose your savor, as the New Testament warns, you aren't just becoming boring, you are losing your conductivity. You are becoming a leaky circuit that can no longer hold the high-voltage light of the divine. This is where the fear of the demonic enters the picture. A demon, by definition, is a parasitic entity that lacks a physical anchor. It needs your conductivity to manifest. The Sea of Glass and the Dead Sea. Here is the secret that completely reframes the first half of this video. Have you ever wondered why in the book of Revelation it says that in the new heaven there was no more sea? Most people think this means the water disappears. But look at the historical gap. In the ancient world, the sea was the symbol of the abyss, the unorganized, chaotic water where the Leviathan lived. The ocean is 3.5% salt. It is the largest purification vat on the planet. But there is a specific body of water that the ancients feared and revered above all, the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is nearly 34% salt. Nothing lives there in the biological sense. But in the metaphysical sense, it was considered a vacuum cleaner for the spirit. Recent studies by researchers like Dr. Gerald Pollack at the University of Washington have explored the fourth phase of water. He found that water near hydrophilic surfaces, like salt, organizes into a structured, crystalline state that excludes all impurities. The demons feared the ocean not because of the water, but because the salt content acted as a literal Faraday cage. Chaos cannot penetrate a high-saline crystalline structure. This is why, in many ancient cultures, if a house was thought to be haunted, the first thing they did was wash the floors with seawater. They weren't cleaning the dirt, they were grounding the static. The biological grounding, the salt of the earth. Now, let's get ruthlessly honest about your own biology. When Christ told his followers, "Ye are the salt of the earth," he wasn't giving them a compliment. He was giving them a functional requirement. If you are the salt, you are the stabilizer of the social fabric. If you lose your savor, your crystalline integrity, the society enters a state of fermentation and rot. Look at the world around you today. Does it feel grounded, or does it feel like a chaotic, swirling ocean of conflicting frequencies? We have replaced salt order with sugar, fermentation. In your diet, sugar feeds yeast and fungi, the biological parasites. In your mind, sweet lies and distractions feed the mental parasites. The Salt Covenant is a call to return to the cubic geometry of truth. It is the purifier because it demands that you become hard and fixed. In the medical case study of hyponatremia, low blood sodium, patients experience confusion, seizures, and a loss of self. They literally begin to dissociate. This is the mental model you need. Your integrity is your salinity. If you want to be protected from negative influences, you don't need a magic spell. You need to salt your boundaries. The Faraday cage of the soul. The ultimate utility of the Salt Covenant is the creation of a holy space. In the Temple of Jerusalem, there was a salt chamber where the salt was stored. Every priest had to be grounded before they could encounter the radiance of the Holy of Holies. If they weren't, the sheer power of the environment would short-circuit their nervous system. We are living in a time of high-intensity digital frequency. We are being bombarded by static that is designed to keep us in a state of liquid chaos. To fear the ocean in the biblical sense is to recognize that we cannot survive if we are just dissolved into the world. We must crystallize. The demons fear the ocean because they cannot inhabit a saturated space. When you are saturated with your own truth, your own boundaries, and your own salt, there is no empty space for a parasite to occupy. Stop trying to be sweet to a world that is rotting. Start being salt. Sign the covenant with your own life. Be the fixed point that chaos cannot move. Because in the end, the purifier doesn't just clean the surface. It changes the very geometry of who you are.